Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. A lot of football today. Joined by Bill Bender coming up. Segment 4 and 5 today. Talk some college football with him, get into the Heisman. Also the college football playoff, the Sharon Moore situation. Also be joined by our friend Matt Verderame. Does a great job on the NFL for SI, one of their NFL insiders. Also the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. Get his thoughts on what we're going to be talking about right now. It's the big story on a Monday edition of the show. And we're talking about what happened with the Kansas City Chiefs. And how can you not? With what transpired on Sunday. I mean, look, I have often compared this situation in Kansas City to what's going on with the Golden State Warriors. I think it's a very apt sort of way to look at these two teams. Two franchises, dynastic, accomplished amazing things, great runs, historic runs. And in the case of the Golden State Warriors, I made the case 3 years ago it was time for them to blow the thing up and start the rebuilding process, whether that was around Stephen Curry or whether you moved Curry. But it was time to shed the Draymond Greens and the Klay Thompsons and everybody else associated with the run. And they didn't. And they did this slow patchwork piece together sort of thing. And you get what you have right now, which is a Warriors team that is mediocre, is a 500 team, charging Moe prices for Kirkland champagne, basically, is what you have. You have a watered-down version of the Golden State Warriors that's taking place that fans are having to deal with. And I've said the situation in Kansas City now is similar, where you've got an aging Travis Kelce. You've got a run game that's sort of non-existent. And Andy Reid that, while is still an amazing coach and has accomplished great things, is sort of closer to the end of his career than the beginning of his career. And you start to add this all up, and you have what's going on right now in Kansas City, which is kind of a meh team. A team that won a ton of close games last year and lost a lot of those same games this year in a league that is cyclical, and these things, regression to the mean, that sort of happens. So the answer to me, from the Kansas City Chiefs perspective, is a pretty easy one. And it is start the rebuild now. And Patrick Mahomes' injury yesterday gives you a golden opportunity to do just that. You have every reason in the world to start retooling this thing. And I don't know what Mahomes looks like when he comes back from this ACL injury, 30 some odd years old, with a lot of tread on the tires from not just all the regular season games played, but all the postseason games played. He's played an extra couple of seasons worth of football with all the postseason games that he's been in. And I know this is going to be blasphemous to bring up this idea, but do you draft a quarterback if one falls to you? And you're Andy Reid in Kansas City. We've seen other teams do it with stars still in place. The Packers did it twice. Is this what you do if you're Kansas City? Is start to at least formulate what the next chapter of this thing looks like? If Travis Kelce wants to come back next year, do you want him back? There's a lot of questions to be answered coming off that loss yesterday and the way this season unfolded for the Kansas City Chiefs. Big story number 2 comes from the Heisman. Congratulations to Fernando Mendoza of Indiana. While I think Jeremiah Love was every bit as deserving potentially of winning the Heisman with his performance this year at Notre Dame, no problem with the fact that Fernando Mendoza won it. You know who did have a problem with Fernando Mendoza winning it? The guy who just gave him a hug. Diego Pavia, the quarterback for Vanderbilt. Whew. F the Heisman voters, Diego Pavia said, following a distant second-place finish. By the way, There's nothing wrong with finishing a second place, even a distant second, when it comes to the Heisman. And Diego Pavia did that. I mean, it's no small thing to even be up for the Heisman, to be able to make the trip to New York, to be in that conversation with the best in the game. And Diego Pavia took all of that and threw it away. And why? Because of his ego. And in an era of NIL, where these guys have now, used to be you couldn't have agents when you were in college football or in college sports. Now in the era of NIL, all these guys basically have agents already. They all have representation. They're all making money. A lot of times they have smart people around them. How is it that nobody got into the air? Because if Diego Pavia was expressing this immediately after the Heisman vote was announced and after he found out he finished second, he clearly had been expressing it to others before this had taken place. Everybody knew Fernando Mendoza was probably going to win. All the betting odds, everything basically told you that. How did nobody get to Diego Pavia? How was it that nobody was able to get in this kid's ear and say, you know what? Don't throw away millions of dollars. Don't throw away potentially your NFL future. Didn't you learn anything from Shedeur Sanders? Didn't you learn anything from what we saw what happened with Shedeur Sanders? Who didn't do anything nearly as dumb as what Diego Pavia just did on Saturday night. And we should also mention, on Sunday, he gave the apology and, groveled for his redemption. But it's too late. You already showed us who you were. Your true colors were on display on Saturday night. F Indiana, F the Heisman voters. Cost himself tons of money. Hey, maybe he doesn't need it. Maybe he's got a backup plan for life after football, does Diego Pavia. I'm curious to see what Bill Bender has to say about it. Because I don't even know how much of an NFL prospect the kid is. Talking later rounds. I don't know how his game translates to the next level. Certainly going to have a chip on his shoulder. But if you're an NFL team and you look at that, are you saying, yeah, that's the guy we want to spend our draft capital on? Good luck with that. Matt Verderame, SI.com, NFL Insider. Also, the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. He joins us next to talk about all things Chiefs. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show. All right, we talked about it in the big story. Let's continue the conversation now with Matt Verderame. Does a great job over at SI, NFL Insider there. Also the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. All right. I mean, look, they were already a long shot to make the playoffs going into yesterday. But then you see this injury for Patrick Mahomes with the torn ACL. Give me your thoughts as we're, 12, 16 hours out from it and sort of where this organization goes from here.
Well, Camelot doesn't last forever. If it did, it would just be Tuesday, right? So, listen, they're, in a weird way, depending on the injury to Mahomes, I actually think in some ways the season could end up serving them well down the line, into the future. Because, look, this team is probably needed to reset now for a couple of years. And they didn't last year because they were going for a three-peat, and to their credit, found a way to get to the Super Bowl. Then they get into this year, and it's really, I would tell you honestly, I don't think there's that much difference between this year and last year's team, except for the fact that in last year's edition, they found every way to make a play at the end of the game. And this year, they found every way to lose the game. I think that's been the only difference with this team, just the one-score records. They were 12-0 last year, 1-7 this year. I think moving forward, and I can tell you from talking to people in the organization, I know that for a fact, they know they need to revamp their offensive scheme. Their offensive scheme is not good. They need to find a competent running back. Their running back room is the worst running back room in football. Defensively, they have to find a pass rush that goes along with Jones and Karlaftis. They had nobody who was even worth talking about all year next to those guys. So I think those are going to be the priorities, and maybe even adding another receiver alongside Rice and Worthy, because I think they feel like they need another body in there. But let's be honest, all this comes down to how quickly does Mahomes recover. If it's 9 months, he's back week 1. If it's longer than that, you got a problem.
And it could be. I mean, with ACL injuries, who the hell knows? And when you come back from an ACL injury, how good are you that first year back anyway? And then you start asking the question, and I brought this up in the big story, and I'll ask you. And I don't mean this in an insulting way to what Patrick Mahomes has meant to this team in this league, but do you think about drafting a quarterback if one falls to you in this draft?
No. I think I can't quite quote this guy on this because it's not for families. But Tom Moore used to coach the Colts, the offensive coordinator for the Colts when Peyton Manning was there. And one of the reporters asked Tom Moore, everywhere else I've been, the backup always gets a series or two in every practice and gets reps. Why is it that you don't do that here? And Tom Moore looked at the reporter and said, because if 18 goes down, we're effed, and we don't practice effed. And I think if you're the Chiefs, he's 30 years old. He's the franchise. I think what you do is I think if you're the Chiefs, if you're Brett Veach, you plan this offseason around the idea of that he will be back week 1. That is just, I think, now look, maybe you re-sign Minshew, you have a decent backup, whatever. But your thought process, I believe, has to be, we are building the absolute best team around this guy to insulate we are going to give him an actual running attack. He's never had a 1,000-yard running back in his career. We're giving him an actual 1,000-yard running back. We're going to go out and get him a true X receiver and stop making it Juju Smith-Schuster. We're going to go out defensively and make it so that they can get off the field and not have to be on the field constantly as they've been this year because they can never get off the field on third down. I think if you're the Chiefs, you are trying to build a really, really strong team around him. And look, maybe that includes trading a guy that most people don't think they trade. I wonder if they trade Trent McDuffie this offseason. I can see him doing it. Maybe it's Rashee Rice. Because Mahomes, listen, in this day and age, you should be able to recover from this. You're probably looking at 8 to 10 years going forward with him. I think you need to build the second version of this team. The first version is dead.
Does that next version, the name we haven't talked about at all, is Travis Kelce in all this? Hearing the comments last week on New Heights, he sounded like a guy that not is given up, but is just struggling to find answers for why he can't perform at the level he thinks he should be able to perform at. When I hear a guy saying, I can't find the answers, usually the next thing I'm used to hearing, especially with everything he has going on the side, or maybe the NFL is the side and maybe everything else is the full picture of what's going on in his life.
And it's funny. You look at him and go, well,
feels like Klay Thompson to me. If this whole thing feels so similar to the Warriors in this regard, that the Warriors waited to rebuild. Now they've had 3 years of suck, and it's going to be even longer to try and put this thing back together because they were unwilling to part ways with certain pieces. So I look at this in a similar way. It's just start shedding what you have to shed.
Yeah, well, they're interesting in the sense, look, Kelsey's year to year at this point. I don't know if he'll come back. He's second in the league for yardage for tight ends, which is crazy. But the guy still might have 1,000 yards this season. So, I mean, does he come back? Maybe. I don't know. If he does, they'll bring him back. They'll certainly welcome him back. But they've got to build forward around their young talent, which, to their credit, to Veach's credit, they have. They have Karlaftis. They have McDuffie at this point. We'll see if they re-sign Jalen Watts. I think they should. I think he's a very good player. They have Nick Bolton in the middle of defense. They have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Josh Simmons and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. They have young talent on this team. But they now, I think to your point, that needs to be the focus. It can't be 36-year-old Travis Kelce. It just cannot be that anymore. And, look, I think 2 years ago, they thought that that's what was going to happen. And then Rice got hurt, and that kind of scuttled things. And then this past year, Rice is suspended for 6 games, and, everything gets off to a slow start. They're going to have to make tough decisions this offseason. And I would not be surprised if part of that is, like I said, maybe they trade Trent McDuffie. Maybe they – look, I can tell you right now, they're going to cut a lot of guys this offseason. If you look at their cap sheet, they're cutting a lot of guys. Juwan Taylor, Drew Tranquil, Mike Danek, Christian Fulton, they're gone. Maybe Noah Gray. And then you start looking at rebuild. But it's going to be, look, they've got a lot of pieces, but they need to change. And I'll tell you, the biggest problem I have right now is the way they coach the team. That's their biggest problem. Their offensive scheme is a joke. It is the biggest problem they have on the team.
Does that go back to Andy Reid then? I mean, are we pointing the finger at him?
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that it's one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen for a team that has this much talent.
Wow.
Yeah. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I've watched every stitch of this team for the entire dynastic run. It's legitimately the worst coaching job I've seen in Kansas City since Romeo Crennel. And it's not close. Like, they have talent on this roster. And they don't bother to change because he doesn't want to change. I would also argue Matt Nagy, this should be his last 3 weeks in Kansas City. It won't be because Andy doesn't fire anybody. But they need to change their scheme. And by the way, they will tell you that privately. They need to change their scheme. Their scheme stinks.
Matt Verderame, SI, does a great job on the NFL. Also, the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. Thank you, my friend.
You got it. No problem.
Thanks for being with us from our Las Vegas studios on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. But we are a bi-coastal show because this guy hangs out with us every day. From the mean streets of New Jersey, Sam Yarnell. Oh, he was taking victory laps yesterday. Oh, was he taking victory laps yesterday? Cashing tickets left and right after the Chiefs missed the postseason as well, was this Sam Yarnell. And Kansas City missing out on the postseason, something Sam had put in wagers on like 5 or 6 different times, futures bets, throughout the season, Sam, and cashing handsomely.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jason. And you and I talked about it, right? From, I don't know, when's the first time we mentioned it on the show? Like maybe week 3 or week 4? It certainly wasn't after week 1. I think you and I both, me having the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year. I mean, to an extent, right? Egg on my face, because going into week 1, I thought the Chiefs were going back to the Super Bowl this year. I thought it was, well, you know what? They are just inevitable. Turns out they're not. Turns out Goliath can be slain. And oh, it has been, Jason Page. Goliath has fallen, as they say, right? This is, it's shocking from a football perspective that a team with this pedigree, with all of these resources put into it that the Kansas City Chiefs have put, with as many Hall of Famers on the field as they put on the field on a week-to-week basis, right? 3. What other team in the NFL is doing that on a week-to-week basis, right? You've got 3 Hall of Famers, 2 of them at least going in at their very first chance. And now for the Kansas City Chiefs, you can only look ahead towards next season, and a grim sight gets only more grim when you dig deeper into where they are, right? Going into next season, $44 million over the cap already. This is a team that is staring down the barrel of not a retool, Jason Page, a rebuild full-fledged.
Yeah, I was talking about that with Matt Verderame a few minutes ago. You know, the idea of rebuild versus retooling and sort of what goes in and what goes out. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, I don't think they were as good as they were last year. I don't think they're as bad as they are this year. I think they're somewhere in the middle. All the close games they won last year, they lost this year. I think they're 1-7 in one-score games, something to that effect. But move away from that, because the result that shocked me yesterday, well, maybe it didn't shock me because I did pick the Bills to win the game in Foxboro yesterday. But it's the manner in which the Bills won this game, down 21-0. You had Mike Vrabel dancing down the sidelines, everything looking rosy. And then the second half happened. And between the end of the first half and the start of the second half, or most of the second half, the Bills score on 4 touchdowns on 4 straight possessions. That vaunted Patriots defense went by the wayside. But, you know, kudos to them. They punched back, took the lead before the Bills come back and get the lead late and hold on for the win. I have a feeling I know what your takeaway from this is going to be, Sam, but let me have it. Let me hear what you think about the Bills' stirring comeback down 21-0 yesterday and getting the win in Foxboro.
So many takeaways from this game, Jason. There are from both sides, from each team involved. Right from a Patriots perspective, this is what they've done all season, right? They came out, they punched their opponents in the mouth, and very early on for the first quarter and a half, they played incredible football. Let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. The New England Patriots were playing championship football for a quarter and a half. And then it all fell apart. And by fell apart, I mean fell off a cliff. Like we're talking colossal plane crash level of what the Patriots did. All they had to do was run the ball. And turns out they couldn't, but not even that they couldn't. It's weird, right? You talk about the Bills defense too, a main talking point around this entire Bills team for the entire season. For all intents and purposes, they just shut out the New England Patriots in the second half. Outside of one luck box Travion Henderson 65-yard run where he was literally stuffed at the line, bounced it outside, and made a miraculous play for a guy who's going to contend for Rookie of the Year this year. This Bills defense absolutely locked down New England. They gained 1 first down in the entire second half. That is elite level defense against who everyone was calling an MVP candidate coming into this game. Now, obviously, a lot of people have woken up to Drake May over the last 12 hours at this point, and it seems like they realize that this is a running football team, right? They're built around their run game. Their quarterback can make a couple of throws maybe when he needs to, but actually not really, because he did have a really bad interception yesterday on a third down and short. The Bills are very clear-cut AFC title contenders, Super Bowl contenders at that, because again, Jason, they win doing anything, right? This is a team that's now 4-0 when their opponents have scored 30-plus points, right? They're causing the Patriots to blow a 17-point lead, something the Patriots haven't done in over half a decade, right? This is a team in the Buffalo Bills. There's another stat I wanted to get to here. They were 1-20 under Sean McDermott when trailing by at least 10 points going into halftime to start this season, right? They've now won consecutive games when trailing by at least 10 points at halftime. It is impressive resilience out of this Buffalo Bills team, and they showed you yesterday why they are very much Super Bowl contenders this year.
Yeah, which Bills team shows up in the postseason? Is it the one we saw in the second half of yesterday, or is it the one that we saw in the first half of the game? You know, it kind of feels eerily similar to the Detroit Lions, where you know they're good enough, but are they going to actually show up for 4 quarters? You know, we've seen them now do this twice this year. Game 1 against Baltimore, and now in this matchup against the Patriots. Move away from that for a moment. Talk about one of the other big stories of the day yesterday, and that is the injury for Micah Parsons, what looks like a torn ACL for him, and a lost season after coming over from the Cowboys. And in the final minute here, Sam, you know, as much as we talk about the Mahomes injury, they weren't making the playoffs anyway. This is the most devastating injury of yesterday's NFL action, Sam.
Yeah, well, let's not forget about the Devontae Adams injury, right? Because that's huge too.
It is.
The Packers, it just feels like this is not their season. It's felt like that for the last couple of weeks with the injuries they've endured. The stars are just written against Green Bay this year. And I know Jordan Love had a good week last week, a little bit of regression to the mean this week, right? And it just doesn't feel like the Packers were ever really going to be contenders. Again, like with the Bills, right? We talk about lack of offensive weapons. Name a wide receiver 1 on the Green Bay Packers. Oh, wait, you can't. They don't have one. It's just how this season's going to go for Green Bay. They'll give it a better shot next year, hopefully.
Well, they're certainly going to be a playoff team, and then you take your chances, obviously, when you get there. But the loss of Parsons is huge for that defense, considering the attention that he gets on the field. Even if he's not making a play, it's the attention he gets when he's on the field. All right, we'll move away from the NFL. Plenty of NFL leftovers. Tomorrow, Diana Rossini of The Athletic and the Scoop City podcast will be with us on the show. But when we come back, college football, Heisman, college football playoff, Sharon Moore, it's all next. Good to have you all with us on this Monday edition of the show. Let's talk college football. We got a college football playoff that gets underway on Friday night. We had a Heisman. We had a former Michigan head coach appearing from the Who's Cow on Friday. And we've got Bill Bender, who I don't think has ever spent time in prison or jail. Or have you? Or have you?
The fact that I had to think about it might actually get me in a little more trouble. No, I have not. I may have some acquaintances who have, but there was some wild times in college. But I've never been arrested, and let's keep it that way.
I spent 16 hours in a jail one time in the Tombs in New York on a complete misunderstanding. It was the worst 16 hours of my life.
Right. That's what they all say, Jason.
It was. She told me she was 18. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, Bill, that isn't what happened. I'm joking. It was a driving. It was a ticket that I got. Anyway.
All right, move on. Just move on.
Thank you. Bill Bender, Sporting News, does a great job on college football, all things football. What is Diego Pavia doing? You know, he ruins this night, this great night for Fernando Mendoza. And look, whether Mendoza or you thought Jeremiah Love should have won it, whoever. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, a great winner of this award. The speech was a little much for me. I could probably do without ever having to hear that speech again, which just felt totally scripted and all of that. But the Diego Pavia part of this, Bill, how surprising what? By the way, are you a Heisman voter? I meant to ask you that.
I am, and I
well, F you then, Bill Bender.
It's what he said, right? I voted for Mendoza, Pavia, and then my third was Jacob Rodriguez. I actually had him at third, and I thought he should have been a finalist. I think we talked about that last week. Now, as far as Pavia, I mean, kids are kids, sort of. He's 25, I think. So, I mean, you only give him so much room for that one. But, it's unfortunate. Like you said, it took away. Fernando's definitely a Boy Scout in every sense, and a good story and a feel-good story. Yes. And all of those things. Pavia is a bad boy, and there's nothing wrong with that to me, like the way he plays. I thought the vote would have been closer, though. I will say that. That was a wider margin for the Heisman than I thought it would be.
Bill, something you and I talk about throughout every NFL offseason is draft stock and how these kinds of things are looked at by NFL teams. I don't know if we've ever talked about something quite like this for such a big name prospect. How do you think NFL teams are going to look at how the Heisman race played out, not only at the end with the whole Pavia reaction on Saturday, but through the entire season, and grade Pavia on that? Will it hurt his draft stock at all?
Oh my God, if Shedeur Sanders got hurt, I mean, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, it might. I mean, it's certainly going to be a part of the question. The quarterback, you're the face of the franchise, those kind of things. It is a different generation. I hear that argument a lot. I mean, it could be in the news cycle for 24 hours and be gone. But I mean, this is the same Diego Pavia that he leans into the Johnny Manziel image a little too much. And you saw how Johnny Manziel's NFL career turned out. I'm not saying Diego Pavia is into any sort of trouble by any means, but just leaning into that Manziel image, that's not something that NFL teams are probably going to be looking for.
And I'm just not sure how his game translates to the next level. You can run away from guys in college that you're not running away from in the NFL, Bill.
Correct. And that's something he'll have to answer. I'm sure he'll get – right now he's probably a day 2 or day 3 quarterback.
Yes.
Depending on how the combine goes. Fernando Mendoza might be a first-round quarterback, but he's going to get picked apart too. He does have the intangibles and that, like we said, all those Boy Scout qualities we love so much. But is his arm talent good enough? Those kind of things at the NFL level. I think that's going to be the big question with him. Trent Green told me about a month ago he has a good arm, not like over-the-top arm, but he said it's good enough to play in the NFL.
Sam, go ahead.
Bill, I will get into some other things with regard to the bigger teams, but there was a small piece of news that came out last week that I think could have big implications. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Malik Washington going back to Maryland for next season. Obviously, he was a very highly recruited player coming out of high school. A lot of people thought he was going to transfer. What does this say about Maryland? Are they going to be able to compete in the Big Ten next year?
Why do we have to announce that our players are coming back? That's what I would say. Like, of course he's coming back. He's not going in the portal. That was weird. He is a talented freshman, though. He played well in spots last year. I mean, I probably watched him closest early in the season when they played Wisconsin. And, it got a little rough down the stretch when they played Michigan, but pretty talented quarterback. And, I just don't understand why we're announcing that guys we recruited are staying the following season. I think that's bizarre.
The Sharon Moore situation, we saw him last week, in a jail cell, appearing in court. He's out on bond. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. Sam and I were talking about this situation as far as who's the next head coach at Michigan gonna be. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, Bill, there was obviously the letter that Kalen DeBoer put out over the weekend. All the Alabama fans saw it. But do you really think that he's out of the race for this Michigan job? And if he is, who do you think is the favorite to land the position?
I think he is, because why do that statement? You could be vague. You could find a million ways to do it. But once you press send, now if he leaves, he looks really bad. And Nick Saban's done that before, and it worked out for Alabama, but in this case, we'll see. If it's not a Kenny Dillingham or a Jed Fish, you're starting to look at like Dan Mullen, and then once we get down the line here, I'm telling you, if all those guys say no, I think Jed Fish would go if they called him, and but he's also off that Harbaugh tree.
All right,
and
they
that's
gotta get away.
They need to break away from.
I agree. They have to get away from the Harbaugh tree. There's no way we can go back there. More with Bill Bender, the college football playoff. We're getting into it next. Welcome back inside the SportsWrap studios on this Monday. Talking college football with our friend Bill Bender. Does a great job over at the Sporting News. One more thing on the Sherrone Moore. Ward Manuel's going to survive this at this point?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. And the fact that they're launching
That's not a popular answer. Everybody's got a yes or no. Come on.
I'll say no eventually. It might not happen right away, but within like a year or two, he'll probably be gone. As they're launching a probe into the entire athletic department, I do think he deserves credit for hiring, what might be the best basketball coach and the best basketball team in the country right now. But this is Michigan, and they care about football more. There's no way around that. So the practices around the multiple NCAA investigations, and now the Sherrone Moore situation, and depending on how the details on that play out, I would say Ward's on a short, count, if anything, if something else goes wrong.
All right, Bill, let's talk about the college football playoff. Alabama and Oklahoma, the first game that we'll get in this playoff. When you look at this matchup, what do you see?
I mean, can Alabama run the ball? Does Ty Simpson and John Mateer both in their last 4 games, their completion percentage was lower than 60%. So are these guys going to be efficient enough and avoid turnovers, and which quarterback does that? I actually like Alabama to win the game. And I tend to, when you get these teams, when they hear for a month they don't belong, and they have the talent that Alabama has, and they have the talent that Miami has, I can see both of those teams winning this weekend.
All right, I'm going to leave it to Sam to ask the obligatory James Madison question of how James Madison can win this week. Go ahead. Come on, Sam.
No, Jason, everybody in the college football community has made their opinions so very well heard. We need to just not even talk about the G5 teams. So on this show, Bill, we won't talk about the G5 teams. We won't talk about the NFC South, because they're all going to get into the playoffs because they all deserve to, because it's football, but people just don't like the fact that they're going to. So I'll ask you about Miami and A&M instead, because I'm convinced that A&M is going to make Miami look like a G5 school in this game. Tell me what the argument is for Miami to somehow win this game against one of the best teams in the SEC.
They're good up front. I mean, they've got tackles. Maybe Francis Mauigoa can limit Cassius Howell's opportunities to get to the pass to the quarterback. Carson Beck, last 4 games, I just talked about Simpson and Mateer, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he is playing better. The environment will be interesting. I think Marcel Reed, Miami's pass rushers, will get after him. He only took 10 sacks this season, which is pretty incredible, but he also threw 10 interceptions. So I do think there's a path for Miami to win this game. I'm not sure they will. Texas A&M is at home, but I do think this is going to be the closest of the 4 games.
All kidding aside, on Tulane and James Madison, which one will we be waiting the longest? On election night, we have to see how long we have to wait to call it for somebody.
Good question.
How deep into these games, which one will we be saying, wow, they actually have a chance to win longer? Will it be James Madison or Tulane?
Well, James Madison, if they can run the ball a little bit. I mean, they've had a relentless rushing attack all year. Wayne Knight's pretty good. He's got an outstanding. Wayne Knight was Newman and Seinfeld,
That's
correct?
I was just going to say.
That? Yeah. That's so people will say that when they see this kid run. He's pretty good. You know, I just don't see either game being that close in the second half. I do think Tulane will compete for a half as well. You know, what did you learn from losing 45-10? If they go out and Jake Retzlaff's 0-10 or 0-9 like he was last time, they'll be in trouble again. But there's a reason why they put Packers-Bears opposite that Oregon-James Madison game, and I think it's because Oregon-James Madison's the second TV game.
Go ahead, Sam.
Counterpoint, it's because they knew Micah Parsons was going to tear his ACL, and that game is not going to be competitive. Bears by $1 billion in that game. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow,
Bill,
you're trying to make sure that Bill never comes on the show again with us? Really?
We'll see. I mean, we'll see.
No, it's the Bill, you as a Packers fan know very well, it's the Chicago Bears. The Packers will always have a chance to beat the Chicago Bears. They could be starting Phillip Rivers in this game, and they'd still have a fine shot to beat Chicago. Looking ahead, I know that we'll get into this in weeks to come, but, you know, we've kind of projected out how all these first-round matchups are going to go, and I think for a large part of it, maybe outside of the Alabama-Oklahoma game, the better seeds should all advance pretty easily. Which one of them do you think could give one of the teams with a bye the most of a fit come the next round of the CFP? Which one of these teams that we're about to see in this first weekend may be the most poised to go on a run, as it were?
Well, I mean, Oregon, obviously. I mean, if they catch Texas Tech, that'll be a fun game. I mean, I think the winner of that game could actually could be in the national championship hunt. You know, they would go into theoretically playing either Indiana or Alabama. I think Alabama can hang with Indiana. I mean, I don't know if Alabama would win that game, but I think it would be tight. I actually like Miami if they win to compete with Ohio State. I at least want to see it. I wanted to see that game back in October, and I want to see what goes on there. And then, you know, Georgia Ole Miss was a competitive game into the fourth quarter. Nobody got a stop in the first half the first time those two teams played. So, yeah, all four of those quarterfinal games, if the teams I mentioned win, would probably be competitive. I like Ohio State. I like how they match up if Texas A&M wins, though.
In 20 seconds or less, surprised about Kyle Whittingham and retiring at Utah?
A little bit, but I mean, he's been there forever. He's done a fantastic job building that program through the many conferences they've played in, and wishing him well if he chooses to stay retired.
That's what we call a cliffhanger in the business. Bill Bender does a great job at the Sporting News on all things football, but helps us especially with college football. Packers fan number one in mourning today, but it's okay, Bill. It'll be all right. You got Jordan Love.
That's right. Thanks so much.
We'll talk to you later, my friend. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Again, a reminder, tomorrow's show, Diana Rossini of The Athletic, Scoop City podcast will be here. Looking forward to chatting it up with her. Maybe some other surprises this week on the show. Couple of reminders before we go. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's the audio version of this show, available Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Go and subscribe today. It is fantastic. It works well. Driving in the car, if you're on a plane, you got to sit at the airport, waiting for your holiday flight. Go and check it out, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. Also, Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. All the rage, man. If you have not checked this out, we've put a lot of work into taking the show every day, making it available there. That's not the huge work. That's pretty easy. But we also have Sports Wrap Shorts, which if you have not seen these yet, they're 1 to 3 minute video commentaries on the top stories of the day, the biggest games at night, and on Sundays during the NFL. We are posting so much content on the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. We had it all going yesterday. We might have had like 10 shorts that we put up yesterday just in the course of the day covering the NFL. We may have thrown one in on the NBA as well because there was a wild finish between the Lakers and the Suns that we slipped in there as well. Sports Wrap Shorts also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram. Guess what? The same name. Sports Wrap Jason Page. Go and check those out today. And without any further delay, on this Monday edition of the show, time for some odds and ends odds and ends, Sam Yarnell, it's not the dream Knicks-Lakers final that maybe the NBA would have hoped to see with the two biggest markets on Prime Video and force people to go get Prime Video so they can watch the Knicks and Lakers play for a meaningless title. But it is pretty cool that we're getting the Knicks, NBA championship contenders, and the San Antonio Spurs, who could be the foil to the Oklahoma City Thunder out in the West, as we found out on Saturday night with their performance out there in Las Vegas against the Thunder, especially when Wemby's on the floor. Look, they got to keep Wemby healthy. Wrap him in bubble wrap. Do whatever you need to do. Because if that dude is healthy, he is the game. The truest version of the word MVP, the truest definition of the word MVP, is what they look like with him on the floor and with him off the floor. And I know they won games while he was out over the last 3 weeks or whatever, 12 games that he missed, Sam. But my God, when this guy on the floor he is something special.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking about? If the Spurs theoretically would have lost that game to the Thunder, right? And this NBA Cup Finals being at the obviously neutral site, if it was Thunder Knicks, how would you be able to tell who the crowd was rooting for? You would have no idea if it was a Thunder crowd or a Knicks crowd. It's just interesting food for thought there. So maybe the NBA wanted it to be the Spurs. It'll be fun to watch Wemby. It'll be fun to watch the Knicks. And, the camaraderie that Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson had is really cool. Like in the press conference, they were making jokes about each other. I thought that was really funny. But again, it would be a lot more fun to see the Thunder because the Thunder are the best team in the NBA, hands down. And they will win the title this year. Yeah, I'm a little bit upset. But you're right, man. If I'm the Thunder, I'm worried about seeing the Spurs in a 7-game playoff series right now.
Please give me a 7-game series between those two teams. I beg of you, the NBA gods, give us a 7-game series between those two teams. By the way, Knicks minus 2.5 as of right now for that NBA Cup final. I'm going to tell you something. They're going to lose. That San Antonio is going to win that game. San Antonio is going to win that game. Take San Antonio on the money line. It just dropped from 116 to 114.
I have to be the Knicks guy on the show again. I guess I'll just return to being the Knicks guy. So Knicks minus 2.5, easy.
I just watched it. Just watched it drop right in front. Oh my God! It went from 116 to 114 back to 116, right in front of my very eyes. Monday Night Football. We've got the Steelers and the Dolphins hooking up in a Monday night duel in the Steel City. Steelers minus 3, Sam Yarnell. They're minus 176 on the money line. You can get the Dolphins at plus 148 if you're feeling adventurous. 41.5 is the total. Where are you going?
I'll tell you this right now, I like the Dolphins. And usually I have to look at my notes before to make sure I double corroborate who I like and what the everything is. I didn't even have to. Jason said the matchup. I was like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about this matchup since last Monday after the Steelers were coming off that massive win. This is the anti-Tomlin spot. This is where the Steelers lose. I have seen it so many times before. Whether it makes sense or not, this is the game the Steelers lose. Coming off of the big win against the divisional rival at home, a lot of expectations in terms of the playoffs. They need to win the game, honestly. I love the Dolphins here. Play them on the money line. Give me them plus 3. Don't care about the total because I'm putting it on the Dolphins.
Cold weather, Miami, Tua.
You're right. It shouldn't be 3. Exactly. It should be like 6.5. But the books know it's 3. It's the Dolphins.
I'm actually going with Pittsburgh. I'm going to have to go against you on this one. When it smells fishy, I know, and fishy is appropriate since we're talking about the Dolphins. When it smells fishy, I know something's supposed to not seem right, but it just it's a missed number. Maybe maybe it's a missed number the wrong way. I don't know, but I'll take the Steelers minus 3, just because it feels like it has to be the Steelers that win this game by at least 3, and it's the Dolphins playing north of the Mason-Dixon. That's all I got for you.
Anything else to talk yourself into it?
You're watching me make the sausage right now. We gotta go. We'll see you all tomorrow.